I get in touch with design in the 83 of the last century, thanks to Domus Academy. Before I was already an academic, and my background, my very old background is architect and engineer, and afterward I was dealing with renewable resources and environmental issues. So my topic for around 10 years in my career was a little bit more engineering, in between engineering and planning, and I was very devoted to the environmental issue that afterward became the sustainability issue. At a certain point in the 83, it happens that being in Milano, having a friend that was one of the founders of a very special place, a very special school that it happened to emerge in Milano in that period, it's called Domus Academy. He asked me to get in and to give some lectures to this group of young designers. And I don't know what happened. It has to be a kind of love at the first sight, because in the year after I was responsible for the research, and 3 years after I was director of the course, and 6 years after I was vice president. And therefore I had an incredible chance, because I came with my own very, in some way, solid preparation for what was environmental issue that in the meantime became sustainability issue, and I brought it in a group of people that I think that many people know. So those years were the year of the Italian design revolution, and it was exactly the group that was leading the Italian design revolution that organized Domus Academy. And so many of them were there, and were there with the idea that what has been the previous 5 years of a very important transformation, mainly at the level of the language of the design, of the physical product of design, should find a new path. So Domus Academy has been founded to try to move from what the Italian design had achieved until that moment, and at that moment was for sure the most important place in the world, and to try to move on from that place. So there have been many different lines of experimentation, and in this environment that was very receptive, I brought the idea of for sustainability and design for sustainability. And what made it so special is that where at that point the majority of the designers were product designers, so when they met with the environmental issue, they tried to concentrate all their own will to change something in the physical dimension of the product. So all the year of designing with recycled plastic, designing for disassembling, designing with cardboard, so this kind of products that should be more, in some way, acceptable for the environment. This was all interesting, but we introduced immediately the idea that social innovation asks much more than simply having recyclable materials, and therefore that there will be a change in the cultural dimension. And this fits very well with the atmosphere in Domus Academy in that moment, because we was trying to see new way of living, new qualities emerging. So practically in few years there have been many different threads of discussion, that some of them could appear not so clearly related with the topic of social sustainability as it was treated in that moment. But I could try to explain why, in some way, everything was more or less coherent with this spirit, but trying to find new path. Afterward, given that every story has to end, my story with Domus Academy and also all the story of the group finished. So Domus Academy as institution continued, but all this group, including myself, went away. I was already working in the Politecnico. In the Politecnico, in that moment, was exactly the period in which we started to move from having design as one section of architecture to have a design as an autonomous faculty and department. So in some way I collaborated to the building of this new faculty and department. And afterward, well, I could say I followed for 10 years all the evolution of the discussion on sustainability, and on my side tried to bring together. And given that it was evident that the product design was not enough to deal with sustainability, this has been my driver to do whatever I did. That maybe people knows me because I started service design, I started strategic design, I started the digital service design. So I did several activities that have a value per se, maybe, but for me the driver was that they had to be the tools to have the possibility to use design technique and capability and culture to promote sustainability. And afterward, in time, I started more as everybody on the environmental side of sustainability. Progressively, we put together the environmental and the social. And finally, for some reason, I mostly talk about social innovation towards sustainability and design for social innovation for sustainability. That is where we are in this moment. It could appear strange, but for me, really everything started in Domus Academy. In Domus Academy, in between the different threads, we started both service design and strategic design. Afterward was design material, there have been interaction design. Practically everything it happened to me to do afterward has a first note that started in Domus Academy. It was not called strategic design, it was called design direction, but the notion was the same. And when I moved from Domus Academy to full-time Politecnico, after a few years it happened that I founded with another colleague, Roberto Verganti, that became very well known afterwards, the first course, master course in strategic design. And again, my motivation, the Verganti motivation, was not exactly the same. So we worked very well. My motivation was always that if you don't have a strategic attitude, you cannot imagine to change from the present unsustainable system to a sustainable one. So you need to have and exercise this strategic approach. But to do it, you have to build this in some way, the tools, let's say. For me, strategic design is not properly a discipline. Well, service design is a discipline. Interaction design is a discipline. Strategic design is very large, so you can have a strategic design approach and apply it in many different kind of design activities that you are doing. But in any case, we had a master of 1 year in strategic design. Afterward, I've been director of that master in strategic design for, I don't remember, maybe 5 years, and after I left to somebody else, and it's still going on very well. There are different stories for the design schools. They depend from where they come from. Our one comes from architecture. Therefore, being mainly architects, myself included, we brought a certain attitude toward research. That was the one of the architect. That, in my view, is a very good starting point. Where in general the design schools do not have and frequently do not have a kind of research atmosphere. So it was needed to create a research atmosphere. And what has been very wise in my university, that we started a PhD in design before having the School of Design. So we started the PhD in design that we call Dottorato, a group of people. In between there was also Thomas Baldonado, so I had the chance to work with him and also to fight with him, but in a very friendly way. And so for a long period he has been the director of the doctorate, and afterward I took the lead. This has also been what I did until my retirement, to coordinate the doctorate. And so the attitude of research was at the beginning coming from the experience in architecture, therefore with a lot of interest also in historical issues, in cultural issues, so not simply something, the most technical side of design. And in my view, what we did together as a group, it was a very interesting group also that one, we used the PhD, the doctorate, to experiment and to consolidate the different disciplines that afterwards side by side we launched. So at the beginning simply we tried to give a ground to design because we didn't have the design as a course. And so this has been the main motivation to start the design course with some basis. And afterward, when the course existed, we